Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that covers all things marketing. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast gives you the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. Whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand, you've come to the right place. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast starts now.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and thank you so much for listening to this episode, our 98th episode, 98 out of 100, and man, it's so crazy. Every time I say welcome back to the podcast and the number keeps crawling, keeps getting bigger. And honestly, I don't think it'll ever not be a shock for me to say that we're making it to 100 episodes. I think that really is just a testament to how big our community is and how strong we all are and how much we all genuinely wanted to learn about marketing. So I want to thank every single listener, even if you've been listening from the start, if you just started listening, whatever, I don't care. I'm just glad you're here, and I'm glad you're here to be a part of our community. I love the GSMC Marketing Podcast, and it has been a great honor getting to host it. So something that I really want to make sure happens is that these last few episodes are the best episodes we do. I want us to really dive into subjects that maybe I've mentioned in the past, but we didn't fully explain, or really give you guys those answers you've been asking, answer all those questions that you've been asking me. So that is the goal with these final episodes. I would love to encourage everyone that if you have an idea or you have a really hard question that you want to ask that you've been holding back, to please, now is your time. Reach out and let me know, because we only have a few of these left. So definitely reach out, definitely connect, and let me know, because I want to make these last few episodes all amazing episodes. I don't want there to be any filler at all. So that is really the whole purpose of ending this podcast at 100 episodes, is I want it to be the best 100 episodes we could possibly make. And so far, all 98 of them, I absolutely love all 98 episodes because it helped build our community. And I'm not going to lie to you, yes, there have been some episodes in there that are not my favorite, and some, we had some technical issues at the start. I had some hosting issues at the start, and, it was a learning curve. It was a learning curve for everyone, but I think we got there, and I am so excited to currently be there. So let's focus on today's episode. While today's episode is here, we are talking about Taylor Swift's marketing. So Taylor Swift's marketing is something that I've talked about in the past quite a bit. We have referenced her when we have talked about pop star marketing. We used her as an example. We talked about the movie industry, and she was brought into that as well. But really, I wanted to focus in on the number of different tips and tricks you can truly learn from this pop star, because she has stayed relevant for the past 10 years, and in an industry that is sometimes very fickle and sometimes flip-flops on people, and you can be hot one second and then not the next second. She has truly just stood the test of time and has completely changed the industry in so many ways. And that truly does come from her talent, obviously. I don't want to discount Taylor Swift's talent by any means, but it also does come from her marketing skills. And obviously there are arguments to be made of, she has a marketing team, she has a very expensive marketing team, and that's obviously not to take any of the credit away from them. So when I say Taylor Swift is doing all these, please know that I mean Taylor Swift and Taylor Swift's team, because I am very aware that it is a team. It is not her alone manning the boat, making all these decisions on her own. So my hope with this episode is that we get to explore that world a little bit more. Folklore just came out, and the world is suddenly talking about Taylor Swift again. It's like she released Lover. People were into it, that album. People were excited for it. And then this whole pandemic happened, and the spotlight went away from Taylor Swift and started focusing on other things. And she wanted that spotlight back. I'm not saying she was selfish. I'm saying she's a businesswoman. She was like, hey, I need to make some more money, apparently. I need to sell some more records. Let's release a new album from the comfort of my own home. So very interesting, the ins and outs of how she did that. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. The question of today's podcast is, I know everybody has one. Don't pretend you're better than me and not having one. What is your favorite Taylor Swift song and or era? I really love her original country music. So I think Teardrops on her guitar would definitely be one of my favorite songs, and just overall general era. I truly loved the country side of Taylor Swift, and I'll continue to be a fan of country Taylor Swift and pop Taylor Swift and now more folk music Taylor Swift. So I don't know, maybe eventually we'll hear a rap album from her. Who knows? The possibilities are endless, but I want to hear what your favorite song is. So make sure you write that in the review down below or reach out through social media. For now, though, let's jump into our tips. Number 1, audience engagement. Taylor Swift is huge on audience engagement and on audience participation. One of the main ways she does this is through Easter eggs. Easter eggs in both her songs, her music videos, and on social media. She is very good about giving her fans a little hints and clues as to what a new song could be about, what a lyric could really be mentioning, when the next album is going to be released, who she might be working with next, which boyfriend she's referencing. So the Easter eggs are a really big part of this. And again, that comes through her songs with a lyric, her music video with the number 13 all over it. Or even one time she said she painted her nails the colors that she wanted her next album to be, and then put that in a vertical video for Spotify. And apparently some people caught that and other people didn't. And to those of you who caught that, if you're listening to this podcast, oh my goodness, that's insane. But it's not insane for Taylor Swift to want to do that, because it makes her audience feel as though they are participating in her journey. Which is why every time a Easter egg is found or a theory is created, she makes sure to engage with those audience members. She will like their ideas. She will comment back. She will share their ideas. She always knows how to respond to her fans and keep them involved. Which is why she also does a lot of live streams to keep her audience involved. She knows the best way to communicate with her audience is directly through social media, not through a press release, not through an interview with Ellen or Kelly and Ryan. She knows that if she wants to talk to her fans, she can do that using social media. Number 2, she stays true to her brand. Now, here's the thing. We're going to get into the ways that she doesn't stay true to her brand, or at least the appearance that she's not staying true to her brand. When we started this podcast episode, I asked everyone what your favorite Taylor Swift era was and what your favorite Taylor Swift song was. And so it would be weird for me to say, hey, she stays true to her brand, when we all know she has gone from being country to pop to folklore. But one thing has been consistent throughout all of that. She is always Taylor freaking Swift. She is always that pop star magic, blonde hair, red lipstick. Like, even in the folklore album, guys, she was still wearing red lipstick. Like, she is still genuinely Taylor Swift. She is still writing about her life. She is still being that creative, inspirational woman that her audience wants her to be. And so that is her brand. So although when we get to tip number 3, which is her reinventing her brand, she is always still going to stay true to being Taylor Swift. But number 3, reinventing her brand. So Taylor Swift probably would not have stayed as relevant or successful over the past decade if she had stayed being the 17-year-old girl who would wear sparkly dresses and play her guitar and write songs about Tim McGraw. No, her audience was growing up, so she had to grow up with them. And growing up meant becoming more in the public light for her and having herself be criticized and picked apart and opening herself up to public relationships. And because of that, she has had to consistently reinvent her brand so that people don't get sick of her, so that people aren't stale with her. So it's truly a balancing act of staying true to her brand, but staying relevant in the public eye and not becoming stale or old news. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and take a short break from the podcast, but when we come back, we have more tips on Taylor Swift's marketing. So stay tuned for more of the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. We are having a ton of fun here. I hope you guys are having a ton of fun. I really was excited to film this episode. I've been wanting to film this episode for a while, but it never seemed to fit with anything that was going on currently in the world. I always wanted this podcast, and still do, to be relevant and to have actual tips that are helping you in your day-to-day life with your marketing. So because that was always the goal, this podcast episode never seemed to fit. If we wanted to talk about holiday marketing, I did that near the holidays. If we wanted to talk about 4th of July marketing, we did that during 4th of July. So this podcast episode never really seemed to have a time. But then suddenly it did. By the way, for anyone who's just tuning in, we're talking about Taylor Swift and Taylor Swift's marketing. So there's a brief window where I had the opportunity to talk about it when Lover came out, her newest album. But then, a global pandemic happened, and Taylor Swift's new album seemed not like the biggest deal, especially when talking about marketing. Instead, we wanted to focus on the things that were happening in the world. We wanted to talk about the coronavirus and how it was impacting your marketing. But Taylor Swift, in all of her beautiful marketing glory, got herself to be in the spotlight again by releasing an album that she recorded at her home during all of this. Like, are you serious? Guys, do you know what I did during this whole lockdown season? It wasn't write an entire album that brought my whole fan base and personality into a new era of my career. No, I ate a ton of Cheetos and rewatched New Girl. Like, I was not writing an album about made up fictional people and a love triangle that they're in the middle of, like she did with Folklore. So, different people doing different things, but we're not studying what type of marketing I do. We're studying what type of marketing Taylor Swift does, because obviously she deserves a little bit of attention. So let's jump right back in with number 4, content, baby, content. So Taylor Swift doesn't simply just release a song and then call it a day. With every song comes a new hint on her social media, comes a whole new batch of Easter eggs for her fans to find, a music video, a lyric video, a Instagram live, a TikTok challenge, all of it has so much content attached. She never simply just releases a song. And here's the thing. Obviously, there are different scales. A music video is a lot bigger than a lyric video. A lot of stars release a lyric video as well as a music video. But Taylor Swift doesn't do anything small. She always goes big. She never goes home. Every lyric video, every music video, every Instagram live, every Spotify vertical video is done to this impossible production standard of she is giving her fans the content they consistently deserve, and she is always willing to give it to them and is always willing to put in 100% of her time and effort into all of it. Number 5, customer loyalty. This is huge for Taylor Swift. She really does reward the fans who have stayed with her from the beginning. Those who have never faltered, never wavered, they were there from the start rooting her on. To give them a little bit of love and show them a little bit of attention, she will do things like have her mom go out before every concert and find the fans who are dressed up to meet her, and will take them backstage to actually meet her. I have a friend who has met Taylor Swift like 4 times, and I think one of those was because she was dressed up and Taylor wanted to reward the fans who cared enough to dress up to go to the show. So she really does give back to her community consistently. She sees them as being people who built her career for her, and so she wants to continuously reward them for that. And by rewarding them for that, it keeps them coming back again and again and again. Number 6, she respects traditional marketing. So we actually did a whole podcast episode on traditional marketing and basically the ways that a lot of it is still relevant today or how you can make it relevant today. And she is the queen of doing both relevant new types of media, but also the traditional forms of promoting her album. She will go and do press tours and concerts and interviews and all that stuff. She does billboards. You see it everywhere. But she also does things like Instagram lives and social media and music videos and just keeps her platform both digital while also keeping it traditional. Number 7, trying new things. So we already talked about how she consistently rebrands herself and is always trying new things. And that is what helps keep her stay so relevant. She isn't afraid to try new things, such as when the Reputation album came out, she didn't do any press for that at all. That was definitely risky. It could have totally flopped. And in a weird way, it did, because that was the only album where she wasn't nominated for any sort of award. So it definitely did falter in a few ways, but it also did help it succeed in another way, because the Reputation album really was supposed to be the album where she was standing on her own and doing things her own way. So don't be afraid to try new things, because it might lead you down a path that opens up more doors, and it is going to be different. I think that's the main thing to remember, is that when you're trying new things, it's going to be different. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different, and it's going to seem different at every single turn that you take. And that can be a bad thing. Like I said, she didn't win any awards, but also, does she need another award? Like, is that really her purpose when she creates a new song? Maybe it is. I don't know. Taylor Swift would have to answer that for you. But when you are trying out any of these tips and you're trying out this one, I just want you guys to be aware that because you're trying new things, you aren't going to get the same results you've always gotten, which is a good thing. That's what we want. We want to try new things and get new results. But growing is uncomfortable. And growing comes with a certain amount of change and a willingness to change. And so that is such a big part of this, is you need to be aware that change is going to happen. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but you're doing the right thing because you are trying something new. Number 8, collaborate with people outside of your network. So as we all know, Taylor Swift has her huge girl gang of models and actresses that ranges from Selena Gomez to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. However, you will notice there is no Taylor Swift song featuring Selena Gomez, although she does appear at her concerts to clearly support each other in their careers, and she's been in a few music videos. They haven't written a song together. Meanwhile, Taylor Swift has written songs with the guy from Panic at the Disco, Brandon Urie, who is definitely not in her network. But by collaborating with him, she is then able to open herself up to his fan base and his audience, whereas her and Selena Gomez share the same audience. So it's just another way to really build up your audience and reach out to new customers. And again, it's the trying a new thing. It is pushing yourself. But I promise, by opening yourself up to more people, introducing more people to your product, you are going to gain more customers and get some new people to be a part of your community. Which is why number 9 is to build a community. The Taylor Swift community is strong. Yes, there are a few outliers who occasionally fade in and out. They like some songs, they don't like the others. But the core of her community stands with her no matter what. They were built to last. And that is sort of what Taylor Swift has built by doing all the things we've already talked about, by giving them content, by having that customer loyalty, and by respecting their choice to be a part of her community and engaging with them at every single level. Okay, everyone, we are going to go ahead and take another break from the podcast, but when we come back, we have even more Taylor Swift tips for you. So stay tuned for more of the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and thank you so much for joining me on today's episode, our 98th episode. It has been an incredible 98 episodes, including this one. Honestly, for me, this episode was just a ton of fun. And I want to just remind anyone who maybe you saw the title of this and you decided to take the chance to listen to this one. Thank you for listening to this one, because I know that it's one of our funner, lighter episodes. I know that we have had episodes where we dig deep into your data and your analytics, and we talk about marketing strategies and marketing campaigns, and we look at them from a very intense angle. And that's great. We have to do that. We have 98 episodes of doing that. But it's also important to always have fun with marketing. It's important to remember that we got the fun job. We're doing the fun job. It's the job that everyone else in the company is a little jealous of, because we get to have fun with it. We get to be creative and test new things and try out our ideas and have days where we get to dream up marketing context. So I definitely think this is something that's important to do every now and then. It's important to look at Taylor Swift and wonder what she's doing with her marketing, and Ariana Grande and influencers, and honestly, just remember to have fun with it and have a good time and keep things fresh and keep things light and energetic, because you'll be able to create better content and more elaborate marketing strategies from a place of enlightenment and creativity. So that's really the purpose of today's episode, is to keep things fun and to remind everyone that marketing is supposed to be fun, and it is supposed to be a bit of an adventure and a bit of an escape from having to look at your data all the time. So I really hope that today's tips and tricks for how to do Taylor Swift's marketing have started those brainstorm juices flowing in your mind, that you are ready to turn on that folklore album and get deep into your own marketing ideas and really just expand your reach into other areas. So let's jump back in with more tips and tricks from Taylor Swift's marketing. Number 10, know how much of your life to share. So this is actually a tip that I think she must have heard from someone else and then took that advice. So when Taylor Swift first came onto the marketing scene, or the music scene we'll actually call it, she was very public about her love life. She dated a lot of A-list celebrities and had very famous breakups, and then would write songs about those very famous breakups. And although that worked for her at a time, it unfortunately turned on her, and it no longer became a thing she was able to do without being judged and without, let's be honest, being slut-shamed for. And there's obviously debates to go on if that was okay, what the problem was, the media. There's a million different things that went wrong there. In no way was it her fault. But she did open herself up to criticism by having a public life. So what she does now is she keeps her private life private, but she does let her fans know her life and what is going on at a very open, more general way. Like, we all know that she has cats, and we know the names of her cats, and we've gone to see parts of her home, and we know whereabouts she lives, and that she really likes the TV show Friends. But it's never been confirmed if she's dating Joe Alwyn. It's never been confirmed if she's dating anyone in the past few years, who she's friends with, who she's not friends with. It is all kept to herself. And that way people are better able to just focus on her music and the content she is creating. Number 11, keep people on their toes. This is a very important one, and it is something that Taylor Swift has done time and time again. Most recently, it was with Katy Perry. Now, it's very well known that Katy Perry and Taylor Swift had a very public feud a few years ago, and it was apparently, better. People were under the impression that they were friends again, but it was never really confirmed because, one more time to bring it to number 10, Taylor Swift does not share her life. But in the You Need to Calm Down music video, she surprised her entire fan base by having Katy Perry premiere in it. It made people who hadn't bothered to watch the video want to go watch it to see that cameo. So she keeps people on their toes, keeps them entertained, and keeps them wanting more. Number 12, tell authentic stories. This is something she has been known to do from the beginning. All of her stories are true. All of them are real to her circumstance, and all of them are things she has experienced in one way or another. But beyond that, there are also things that all of her audience members have experienced. They are truly authentic little pieces of life that we have gotten the experience to listen to her version of the experience and get to relate to it. Number 13, have a voice and use it wisely. This is something that, again, I think she was recently told that she should maybe start doing, but she has opinions on things and she is no longer afraid to share them. I'm not saying you always have to share your opinions on social media. Obviously, there is a point to saying, nope, that's nothing to do with my brand. But if it fits in with your brand, don't shy away from using your voice. Number 14, make and use influential friends. So we already talked about how she collaborates with people outside of her network, but she also does collaborate with people inside of her network as well. She had her entire girl gang filled with models and A-list actresses all appear in her Bad Blood music video just to keep the hype up around it. And finally, number 15, create an unforgettable experience. Whether it's the music, the art, the social media, the music videos, or the lyric video, and especially the concerts, Taylor Swift knows how to make an experience unforgettable and one of a kind. And if there is anything you can take from the queen of pop music, is that your marketing also needs to be an unforgettable experience. Okay, everyone, that is it for today's episode of the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the GSMC Marketing News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to any podcast app and you'll find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news, you'll find it all on the GSMC Podcast Network. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.